Welcome to the Midrash portion of today's reunion roadmap. I'm Barry Phillips, an elder with B'nai Yosef, and with me is David Jones, a fellow elder with B'nai Yosef. David, I trust that all is well with you today. Hope things are going good.
Doing great, Barry.
Oh, well, that sounded convincing. Uh, David, I have something that I think is preoccupying due to the media blitz that we have been receiving in recent days that is occupying my mind, and that is the event that took place not far from where I'm located here on the east coast of Virginia. About 2.5 hours ish away from me is the place called Charlottesville. Um, Charlottesville, for those who may not be aware, is a mountainous community where the University of Virginia is located. So it's a big college town, a very intellectual town, very Thomas Jeffersonian, and it's steeped in a lot of history. So I find it interesting and perhaps even significant that what took place recently there in the racial confrontation and violence that took place between white supremacist groups and Black Lives Matter and fascist groups on the other side. It goes back trying to dig up something that is deep in Virginia's history, and that is the American Civil War and what historians have described as the issue of that war. I take issue with their issue there. But nevertheless, most Americans will look back on those years in the 1860s and say it was a racial controversy. So it brings to mind the things that divide us: race, religion, economics, political mindsets and preferences, historical family issues, sometimes just your ethnicity and your genealogical line as to what country you came from. All of these can rise up and cause people to have a negative opinion of someone without really knowing the person. Bigotry, prejudice,
Biases.
just showing preferential treatment or showing a lack thereof to someone just because of their skin color or their obvious ethnicity. That's become part of the underbelly of America, sad to say. Where does this fit in the body of Messiah? And how is it that you and I are supposed to relate to those who say that they hate us? A man or a woman will look at us and they see our zitzit. They hear us use the term Yeshua as opposed to the more commonly accepted Jesus, and immediately they start treating us different. How are we to respond to them, and how are we supposed to keep from hating others who want to do us violence? A lot of questions on this. What are your opening thoughts? And maybe we can get into some pertinent questions for today.
It's one of these subjects that's difficult for people to address because it is a big problem, and so many people are trying to say it's not a problem. It is a problem, and our own pride is, in my opinion, at the root of it. We want things the way we want them, and we want the right to look down on others. And scripturally speaking, we do not have that right to look down on anyone. And we need to learn how to treat each other with respect when we don't agree. And but again, this is where there needs to be things that we can agree on, like rule in the land, so that we can at least have a same ideology of how things should go. This is why, we do not live in a Torah-based society. We do not live in a solid scriptural society. So even though some of the rules of the land were based out of Scripture, we're not following those today. We're not really looking at the heart that these things were written, and so everyone is seeking their own path, their own way, their own desires, and what's good for me. And it's causing a lot of problems. It's causing a lot of tension. And in my opinion, things are going to get worse. But this is also getting to the point of praying for the Messiah to come. It's even within the body where, well, I'm with this group and they're with that group. It reminds me of when Shaul was talking. Well, I'm with Paul and I'm with Apollos and I'm with whoever. It doesn't matter. We're all supposed to be part of a body, and we need to see each other as that. Because different parts of the body act differently, they behave differently, they approach things differently, they think about things differently, and they're not always going to see, act, and do things the same. What we need to learn, I'm not going to say just to embrace our diversity, but in a manner of speaking, yeah, because we need to look and see the way that we think things need to be done is not always the way it has to be done.
Well, I think, David, there is a mindset at times that it's twofold. One is that we believe that we are so perfectly right that anyone who disagrees with us is imperfect. Therefore, they are worthy of our looking down on them. That's a mindset that we have to get rid of. None of us have gotten there so perfectly that everyone else who disagrees with us has to be wrong.
Well, even in issues where we think we're right, how many times have you thought you had something figured out and then come to find out later you were wrong? But you were so certain you were right.
That's never happened with me. I don't know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's never happened to me either, right? But I think that's kind of the point here, that we tend to look and look down on people who don't think the same way we do, and we judge them. Let's call it what it is. We judge them. And James says we're not supposed to be judgers of our brothers. We're supposed to walk together with them. Okay,
well, you said brothers. So what about those then that are not our brothers? Are we only supposed to turn the other cheek to those who are our brothers? What if it is one who presents themselves as an outright adversary? Rav Shaul wrote in Romans 12, verse 14. When I first started thinking about these lines, I was thinking of verse 18. If possible, on your part, be at peace with all men. But verse 14 is even more emphatic when he says, bless those who persecute you. That's a strong word. Persecute you. Bless and do not curse.
Now, so Barry, you can't tell me that the disciples did this. Actually, yeah, they did, didn't they?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm thinking of one of the most horrific periods in the annals of man's history, when the Nazi regime persecuted millions of people simply because of who they were, and felt that it was their given purpose to eradicate an entire race of people from the face of the earth. And so they set about identifying those who had any Semitic blood in them whatsoever, and set about to annihilate them. Were those Jews under the influence of Nazi Europe in those days supposed to not curse their tormentors? How do you bless someone who's about to lead you into a gas chamber?
Yeah, that's hard. That's real hard. But Yeshua said, pray for your enemies even. And we want that none should suffer, right?
Sure.
So how is it that we can pray for someone who is putting us through things that we know are not right and are anti-scriptural, things that are against Yahweh? And how do we approach these when we know that is wrong? But what is our part in it? We're not to respond evil for evil. We're to be above that, and we find all through history where the people of Yah have been persecuted and killed for what they believed.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that that's what I want, but at the same time, if that's what it comes down to, we should be willing to lay our lives down just as He laid His life down for us. But how many people how many stories have you heard where people have ended up coming to faith because they were persecuting people and they responded with meekness?
Well, even Rav Shaul, who wrote this, was holding the garments of those that were stoning Stephen. I mean, he felt that it was his Yah-given purpose, anointing, and calling to seek out those that were followers of Yeshua and eradicate them from the face of the earth, lest they infiltrate, dilute, and influence the standard functions of Judaism in that day. He was the one who was known as, the killer, the persecutor of those that were following Yeshua. And his heart got turned around. If that can happen, and we tend to forget that part. We see him as the great apostle, as I heard him called.
Right.
But this man was zealous, extremely zealous in what he believed to be true. I mean, when they drag you out of a city and stone you for your doctrine and leave you thinking you're dead, and then you get up and stumble back into the city, that takes, I don't know if he was nuts, if he was made loopy by a stone in his head.
He had a concussion.
Very likely. But he had a zeal that says, I will not quit. He went right back. I mean, if I was pastoring a church and they drugged me out in the parking lot and stoned me, I'd get the idea I shouldn't show up the next Sunday.
Yeah, I wouldn't think I would come back.
So, but as you were describing Yeshua, suffering a moment ago, you mentioned that. I was thinking of him hanging on the tree saying, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing.
Well, that's the ultimate thing, isn't it?
It is. These that were involved in the violent melee that took place, they are indoctrinated on all sides with hate. They irrational, falsely based. Their foundation has no truth in it, and someone has filled their mind with their propaganda and with their hatred and their racial or ethnic prejudice to the place to where they hate people. It's not the person, they hate people. Right. Anyone under a certain banner or philosophy, you are my enemy.
Yeah, I don't even know this person, but yet we feel the hate.
So, I mean, we cannot allow ourselves to be drawn in on either side of that. We have to be the people in the middle, representing a completely different philosophy of life and a completely different agenda. Well, some may say, well, that's pretty obvious. I mean, what's the major point in that? How is it any different, David, when we resist or reject people because they follow the Torah differently than we do? I will not allow the people of my assembly to worship with the people of that assembly, even though we are all seeking to be Torah observant and we're all followers of Yeshua. But you say Yeshua and I say Yehoshua, and we find something to divide ourselves, and we create a banner out of that and start collecting people under. How is that any different at its root than Black Lives Matter on one side and the KKK on the other? What is the difference there?
Barry, this reminds me of Kepha, Peter. I'm reading 1 Peter 2:16 and 17. It says, live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. Honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, and honor the emperor. We are free, but we cannot say, well, I believe this way and I'm free. And to say that, well, I don't like you because you don't believe and think the same way I do, that's trying to use what God has given us to cover evil intent. And we can't do that. Even if we say, well, it's not just brothers. What about just brother? What about no? Peter said, honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the emperor. If we have that honor for those around us, respect, it's amazing. When you give it, you get it.
Awesome words, David. And unfortunately, man, time has just flown by. We're out of time here. I hope that we've at least provoked some thoughts for prayer in regards to this issue. We'd like to hear your opinions. If you'd like to write us at B'naiYosefNA.com and let us know what it is that your thoughts are on the subject. David, until next week, shalom, my brother.
Shalom, brother.